Hello and welcome to Sounds Heal Podcast. I am your host, Natalie Brown, and thank you so much for joining me as we continue to explore the fields of sound healing, sound therapy, and generally the use of sound for health and wellness. I am so excited to have Fran Bak with us for this episode. She is in Bhutan currently, and actually the only person to acquire a tourist visa since the pandemic. And she has brought the Western gongs to Bhutan and to the community, to the people there. And what an inspiring and, of course, challenging experience she's having there. So we learn about her own personal transformation that led her to the gongs, her own inner journey with the gongs, as well as really what her mission is currently in Bhutan. And thank you so much to the Om Shop and Spa for being the sponsor of this podcast. The Om Shop carries the country's largest showroom of crystal bowls, vibrational tools, and really has just a wide selection of sound healing instruments, as well as trainings and sound journeys that you can experience there in their showroom in Sarasota, Florida, as well as their online shop at theomshop.com. So thank you so much to the Om Shop for their support and sponsorship of this podcast. Please enjoy this really inspiring and heartwarming conversation with Fran Bak. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, Fran. It's great to have us connected from the States all the way to Bhutan. And why don't we paint a picture of who you are for those in the audience that don't know, just a little bit about yourself, your background, and perhaps some of the highlights of your life before you got introduced to the world of the Gong.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I'd like to welcome you and your audience to the land of the Thunder Dragon. I'm 70 and a half years old, and I was married for 30 years and lived in San Francisco to an elder who died when he was 98. And that relationship shaped me in a lot of ways. I was privileged to live a very rarefied life. I had the opportunity to do a lot of internal exploration, had teachers. So I've always been on, quote unquote, the spiritual path. And I'm very thankful for the gifts that 30 years offered me to heal from a traumatic childhood and adulthood with seizures and ADD, which continues to shape my life and challenge me, and how it impacts the Gong or not. He died when I was 60, 65, 66, something like that. And I went to Bali, I went to India for 2 months after he died, and then came back and went to Bali for 6 months, for Nepi. While I was there, I discovered I wanted to find another way of living and being in the world as a single woman who had no children, who had no career other than householder, to speak of. And 6 weeks after going to Bali, I went back for 6 months. I did not read Eat, Pray, Love. It was my own Eat, Pray, Love experience. It was a time of discovering myself as a single woman, what it meant to be with others, not as a spouse. It was my bookends. There were the Yoga Sutras and Leonard Cohen. They were my Bibles. So it was a great time of grief and growth. And that's where I was introduced to the gongs at the pyramids of Chi, which were pyramids built to scale, and they had just started doing sound baths. Totally new to Bali. I knew nothing about gongs. had no interest in them. But I went to a sound session, and the first one, I must say, was rather traumatic, as I was in a very highly charged emotional state. And given an auditory processing neurological issue, it was too much for my system. However, I sat for 2 or 3 months in their cafe, and someone then said, well, here, try. And they put a mallet in my hand, and literally it was as if I had taken a drug. You know, the mind and the brain opened up, and it was like making love to the gong. And my ear doctor said afterwards, it was the gong is the white noise. However, it balanced my auditory processing system. Now, the beautiful thing is the sound of in the shower was deafening to me. And all of a sudden, this mallet is in my hand and my ears to this huge gong. So for me, the gong continues to be medicine for my nervous system, for my auditory system. And I find there's a very fine balance of taxing myself and being. And that's been one of the journeys I've had with the gong. So after I came back to San Francisco, I received a medical diagnosis that my health is fine now, but it was a decision that made me say, how did I want to live the rest of my life? And part of that was to live in a very calm environment. I got to Thailand because someone said to go to Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village. Just happenstance. That was the only reason I went to Thailand. While in Thailand, someone said, oh, come to Vietnam and play the gong. And that is really how I ended up in Vietnam, all pure happenstance. And when I left San Francisco, I was adamant that I had to take my gong. And at that time, I was not playing very much because I suffer from acute performance anxiety, which is interesting because I'm such an exhibitionist. But I struggled mightily with my relationship with the gong and my own self-judgments and expectations, which obviously go back to childhood. So, but I persevered. And while in Vietnam, I literally, as I tell people, woke up one day and said, I'm taking my gongs to Bhutan. Now, I have to say that I think there are a lot of factors when I look back. Part of it is, what am I going to do as a single woman, no children? And I think I made the decision to accept the role of elder. What was I going to contribute as this wild, crazy, beautiful elder woman to give to the world? And I think this is also part of this journey. And I also do feel part of my mission and this Bhutan trip is to have people say to people, live your wild, crazy dream. You know, it's not coming to Bhutan that's wild. It was waking up and saying, I'm taking at that point 5 gongs. And I'm just going to ask my Bhutan tour company if they will try and make things happen. So that's how I got to Bhutan.
Wow. So is this your first time there, or you've been there before?
No,
so actually...
I went post-COVID, that would be 2019. I spent 3 months traveling 18 out of 20 districts throughout Bhutan, with 2 guys who still are with me, Gembo and Tashi, and we played at monasteries, at festivals, and homestays, wherever I could play the gong and the singing bowl. And at that point, I have to confess, I was doing a lot of banging. This was before my two wonderful teachers of Mike and Thomas, and also Mitch. But I went out there and I did it because it was something, it was like this hand of God, but nothing could stop me. And I was going to return sooner. I left in February, then March, COVID hit. And I made the commitment that I would come back. I would find a way economically to come back one more time, to continue wanting to introduce the gong to Bhutan and integrate it with also Bhutanese instruments. And somehow my Bhutan worked with the government, with the COVID task force. And I did 3 weeks quarantine, and I am the first and only tourist in Bhutan. They said, so it was fate that that I'm here. And
absolutely, that's amazing that you're there and that you've been welcomed. And maybe what about the reception the first time you were there? Obviously you're there again, but was it pretty clear to you right away why you had that kind of that vision, that spark that I'm gonna take this to Bhutan? What was it like in reality going there the first time?
it was a dream. It was something that you cannot almost describe it. And describing what I was doing, because it was not just the tourist trap. I went into homes. I got to see native traditional healers at work. I got to play the gong with traditional healers, play in monasteries that would not allow people. It was an experience where you meet women and they call you sister. A village adopted me. Wherever I went, I was met with love. And Bhutanese people don't talk about the noble truths. No one corrects you, but the immersions of life's lessons are transmitted gently and by example. There's no one hits you over the head. And the Bhutanese people have taught me a lot about really living in the moment, in the experience, and about no worries, La. If you give someone a bag of rice or $1 million, it's the same. Thank you, La. These are some of the lessons that I've been given, and very much it's karma. It'll work out. I felt when I got back to Vietnam the first time, there was this tremendous transition, because it was from the United States as a Westerner, then Vietnam, and then I have this DNA of Bhutan. So it was quite the culture shock. But I say that Bhutan, I can never give back to Bhutan what Bhutan has given to me. And it is certainly a place of great beauty. They have all the problems that we have. They're in the middle of COVID, and I've really listened to people's heartache and despair, and they don't know when it will really open up. But there's also a great sense of solidarity, and we will get through this. So Bhutan is you can't leave here not transformed. It really is. It's really, it's. I think it's the soul of the planet.
Right, and you're bringing a lot of attention to it. I think that is that part of why you feel like you've been so easily received even by the government, is that you're bringing
The,
attention to.
well, what's interesting, when I came here, I said, the purpose was the gong, but I'm going to live in the mystery. That's the one thing I finally have gotten. No, we don't know what the karmic mission is. The reception I have received in Bhutan has been that of, if you will, a rock star. If they had celebrities, and it is humbling. It is a responsibility to know that people's hopes are right. That first of all, they thank you because my visit is giving people hope that yes, tourism will come back. And I'm a model for people and an inspiration. And that's very humbling. It feels like a lot of responsibility. But the government, they photographed me getting off the plane. And it's a country of 750,000 people. So everyone knows one another. It is a small country. So every event matters to people. And they have to be very strict with who comes in because they cannot afford to have the pandemic. So yes, everybody knows me, and it's pretty wild to hear I have all this wisdom, or I'm this great gong player. I'm not. My heart, I'm not a musician, and I lead by my heart, but I'm greeted as this world famous sound healer. And I keep saying, I know some really good players. And I said, every time I pick up the mallet, I'm a beginner. And so it's quite humbling. And yeah, as I say, a little girl from Buffalo, New York, who would have thought?
Mm, that's so beautiful. Well, tell us about some of your experiences. I've been able to see, some of the places you're doing work there just through Facebook photos. And tell us kind of where the gong's been taking you there this visit.
Well, this visit has been staying in Thimphu and doing a lot of networking, some beautiful experiences. If I can just highlight a couple. The other day, I played in a very small, I want to say rehab center. They're building it, so it's in a small, tiny, tiny little hut, if you will, with 9 people. I played, and it reminded me of being in the remote eastern regions. And people, everyone I played for, no one has ever heard the Western gong. These are totally new sounds. The koshi chimes are new to some people. The rain stick, the 7-minute Bulgarian rain stick, sends people over the moon because they just don't have them here. Although I am getting the opportunity to say to people, well, no, you don't have a rain stick, but here's soundscape right outside. You've got the river. And you have it here. You have got sound healing in Bhutan. I'm making you aware of it. But there was this young woman who was playing the Thunder Dragon, which is a titanium gong that Martin Blase I had made with a picture of the Thunder Dragon, which is the flag symbol in Bhutan. And she was playing it, never having picked it up. And she not only let the sound rip in this little room with 9 people squeezed in, but she put her ear to the gong, couldn't get enough of the sound, and this ecstatic smile on her face. And then she looked at me and she said, these vibrations, this is going through my body. I have never heard a sound like this or felt this. I spent time with 3 sets of kids, 75 kids total. And this one little boy is on the autism spectrum. And he listened to the sound ran away and came back and kept coming back and could distinguish the sounds. And the next day, and then I had given him the rain stick earlier because I wanted to calm him down. The next day, he was able to discuss the gong, but also somehow correlate the sounds with a rain stick and the gong and put a sentence together, which his mother said he had never done. This was a powerful effect that, and I could watch how his body, he could get into his body as he couldn't get enough of the gong and kept having to hear it. So this is in Bhutan, you know, same problems, and they don't have the services. I get lots of people say they feel that they have gone on pujas or are walking in the mountains. So you get a lot of the same experiences that it's universally people say, I feel relaxed. I feel so light and happy. So the things so I'm getting all of the same, and yet the difference is a certain aha, oh my gosh, and how people's ears will perk up or just very different than what I've experienced in the West. This, oh, the magic, the veil has lifted. And you know, I've had people who found it scary. And I come to say to people, these are new sounds. If they don't resonate with you, then I'm asking you to leave, because this is about taking care of yourself. And I'm finding that people are listening. I played for hearing visually impaired people. I've done a 3-hour session, like quote unquote training, and some others, and they were wonderful to play with. Again, how they heard it differently. And then I've also made it very experiential. Here's the gong, here's the mallet, play. And the experience of having people who are visually impaired play, and how I approach them. And I had a translator, and their reactions were slightly different sometimes. But I have made people playing the gong and all the other instruments part of my giving a session, because the idea is to introduce these sounds. And also it's been in my journey not to think of the gong only as a sacred instrument that I did before. It is territorial. And I don't feel that way now. It's like, this is to share. And I also have to say, I've had some monks come and play. And that's been really wonderful, because the gong in monasteries and temples, it is nothing but sacred. So I'm getting this across the board response. And also because these are Western gongs. And I've had some Bhutanese musicians play with me on their instruments, and they dovetail beautifully, some of them, and also chanting beautiful Bhutanese chants or folk songs. So I'm learning a lot, and it's transforming my relationship with the gong.
That's wonderful that you can bring it to so many different communities and aspects of things there. You know, when you first arrived, so this is a 3-month visit, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was your kind of mission for this visit? And I'm assuming you must be near the end of the 3 months, is that right?
Yes, my mission when I left, and then the purpose of coming back, was to continue to introduce the Western gong and sound healing modality to the Bhutanese people. I didn't quite know what I was getting into, because I knew I wanted to stay. I knew I wanted to try and see if someone would sponsor me. It's all very difficult in Bhutan. It's very, very challenging. But that was my goal. Now, at the time, I didn't quite know what it meant was to really educate. I got as far as introducing and going into communities. So that has been what I've been here for, is to, in Thimphu for 2 months, to begin to network with people, with some associations and organizations. And the Tourist Council had taken a very active interest in me because they're interested in Bhutan as a wellness destination. But they're quite busy with a lot of other things. So, and they could not sponsor me. So it's been a lot of challenges. A lot of the challenge I've come up against as a Westerner, and maybe self-isolating a little bit more, because I felt as a first tourist, there were people worried about COVID. So, and coming up against the Western stuff and my expectations. So there have been personal growth challenges, moments of despair. But I'm happy to say to you tonight that this Bhutan, the research center, a Bhutan Music Research Center, whom I met with when I first got here, today we hiked this beautiful, quiet hike. Sonam is his name, and he had a dream to build a temple to the goddess of music. And he found a cave, and he has built inside a small little cave. There's the image of statue of the goddess of music. And we went up there today with a thunder dragon gong and 3 other gongs and other instruments, and lit butter lamps inside this cave and made offerings. And he said to me, and he had mentioned it last time, he said, I want to work with you, and I can get you a 3-year visa. I can get you a work permit. And he seems very serious. And so he's an important figure within music communities here, and had a school, and he has the center. So, there's no money for musicians in Bhutan, but he has this museum with all these rare instruments. So he has offered, wants to collaborate, wants to bring gongs to communities, and all the things I want is schools, communities, educate people, train people in gongs. So that's kind of the good news that I feel is very positive. He's very serious. And then this has been after this drought and this despair. And it's very daunting because I'm not a teacher. This is the challenge. It's like, what now? How do I can teach people how to play the gong, because the gong is forgiving, but it's a lot more. So I'm going to reach out to Gong community because they've been so supportive so far in my journey. And then a private resort that I played at today said, oh, we don't have this here. We would like to reach out to you when tourism starts. It's very, and get you a work permit. So there's been all of this having to wait and be patient. And that has been, so this is the goddess of music seemed to have been listening today. And so we'll see.
Wow, congratulations, because I know you were kind of wondering, are these 3 months just kind of a journey that stands on its own, or is it going to be something that continues on? And it sounds like it will continue on.
Tomorrow we go for the next, until about the 19th or 20th. I'll be traveling. I'll be going back doing what I love, which is hitting the road, playing at homestays. We're going to go to more monasteries and open spaces and playing for people again who've never heard this. And this is what I love doing. It's very hard. It's a lot of driving here in Bhutan and mountain roads. Um, and then I'll come back and we'll have meetings. I do have to leave. You have to leave regardless in 3 months. And so I would think that we were thinking 2 or 3 months after, which is really, really good because it is a hard trip. It's psychologically a lot of adjustments that, I've got to take back and marinate with, but it will also give me the opportunity to reach out to Gong community, my mission to bring gongs to Bhutan. And I'm working with Duanan Foundation, who's, is willing to help me. So my next task is really to get the ducks in order, and Bhutan will work on their end, and keep bringing this with gongs and maybe staffing, and get the Gong community involved. And we have hopes of bringing a Gong teacher here, to Bhutan. And why not? Bhutan is the healing, place of the center of the universe. So that's kind of a long term. How can we bring gongsters here? How can we bring gongs? How can, so that's this part of the journey. And it's going to be a lot of challenges, exciting, a lot of opportunities for growth. And I just want to say this is the Gong community. I've had so many people from around the world message me or Facebook offering emotional support, that I've been an inspiration. But Gong people, sound healers, that's also carried me through my journey in these moments where I've said it's very daunting. And that's, I want to acknowledge all the Gong community.
It's a beautiful community. I remember during the Gong Summit, was that a month or two ago, during your talk, how people were volunteering and offering and reaching out to you based on your story and your presentation of the Gong Summit. So yeah, everybody's rallying behind you and quite inspired by you. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I'm not my ADD makes executive functioning very difficult. And I've had people reach out, one person in particular saying, I can help you with crowdsourcing. What can I do to help you? These are your challenges, and a major gongster person here in Asia reached out to me immediately after the Gong Summit and said, we are on board. And I've reached out to people behind, but I've waited until I could say to someone, okay, now I can guarantee you they want me here. We can move forward so that I have lots of integrity. And yeah, it's quite a humbling experience to make a difference in this way. It's very much overwhelming in some ways.
And there's so many different directions that it could go from here, aren't there? It's almost limitless.
Yeah. Now you're overwhelming me. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can imagine it, because it's I'm pretty clear. Today at lunch when I was speaking with Sonam, the one thing I said to him, I've always been very clear about my mission. I'm a gongster. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, quote unquote, an educator. This is what I do. And what I ultimately feel my mission in Bhutan is, they don't, as I say, they don't need a lot of gongsters. These people, it's in their blood. There's awareness, a little technique, bring it in out of the monastery. I feel I'm here to plant seeds. And this is my birthing, and this is a legacy of planting some very solid seeds and foundation, getting gongs in people's hands, and people like Sonam, who already has these strong visions. And that's my mission. Is and even if something happens, I cannot come back to Bhutan. We don't know. We just don't know with COVID. I will feel that I've not only made a difference in people's lives, that whether it took 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, Western Gong sound healing modality is here. And I can live very comfortably with that this is birthed.
And what a gift. What a gift. I mean, people everywhere need the relief, the relaxation from suffering, and it's just such a beautiful gift. Let's bring it back just, to your own inner journey. I mean, we've both said that the gong is a mirror. So maybe now, just as a reflection of where you're at, everywhere that the gong has taken you, how do you feel that in this moment it's transforming you still?
I think the starting point, and I do have to reference Mike Tamburo, and then Thomas when I was doing some things with him, where they actually held my hand, quote unquote, where I could actually pick up the mallet and play. So it's really been back to a beginner's of getting acquainted with this instrument. And the gong now is, my relationship has changed with it very recently. It feels like the fruition of it and the recognition in a very deeper level of how it is mirroring my inner journey. There's just something much more profound, or maybe my acceptance in a different level. I've always been aware when I'm anxiety ridden, I play too fast or I play too loud or whatever. But there's something that's been happening these past few weeks. Is this showing up if, let's say, I'm anxiety or anxious or even happy? It's almost like magnified. It's like maybe the gong is becoming more one with me in a very deeper way. It's a progress of my own growth and of my own challenges. Sometimes the gong has been my enemy here, but obviously I'm my own enemy. But today's like when I was at playing with the goddess and the thunder dragon. I must be making progress, because I'll say to people when I put a mallet in their hand, I said, it won't bite you, it's your friend. It's got a message for you. That's very new for me in feeling that on this very deep level. And I think this has been out of some of my own challenges coming up against my Western self and my own here in Bhutan. And I said, I'm alone. So, I do these beautiful things and then I come back and it's the adrenaline. But I think it is the gong now is when I listen to the thunder dragon. What is this? What is it saying to me? What is this message? And that even is with the old wise earth. So my hearing is different. The more I've gotten out of my way and the more I watch Bhutanese play, because they bring a mindfulness to it. They bring their meditation self to it. And I see how that affects me. Just mindful awareness. So those may be the spiritual lessons of the gong. And it's also funny to see, as you know, as a gong player, and sure the gongsters out there is, what gong is talking to me for at this time. But I'm also looking at my attachment to gongs and what are my needs. And that's kind of new in the sense of, okay, how many gongs do you need? What is going to be happening to you? So these are all, I think they're also just in my life as I'm shedding things. But in that today, and I do want to share this with you because I think this is where Sanjay Hall was only the custodians of the gong. When I was in this, this cave, I have a Sonora Grotto gong, and it was in honor of a grandmother, someone who died. And I said to Sonan, I said, I want the cave to have this gong. And it was just, it belonged there. And it was this, and this is kind of this thing of having to let it go because it belongs here wherever I go. So those are the things that gongs are taking on these journeys of letting go. I think I'm in the middle of this gong journey in ways that I'm not sure how it will transform me or how it is transforming me, because it is set against this backdrop in this country of so many gifts and so much recognition. But it's also, I'm having to really look at my shortcomings and maybe where I'm lazy in the gong. And, it's, you have to look at all of it. And so it's, how do I have to really step up to the plate now if there are people relying on me? So I'm coming up against Fran Bak shadow side that, and so there's some steep curves here that, I have no shame saying to your audience, because isn't this what it's all about for all of us in the gong world or the spirit world? Is it's always a journey leaving home and coming home to ourselves. So I'm in the middle of this cultural shell shock, coming up against myself in beautiful ways. And but the gong has stayed with me, no matter how much I've deserted the gong, and I have. It's as we all know, the gongs are forgiving.
Yes, the gong has been quite the vehicle for your transformation and really a reflection of your own energy. But it seems like most importantly, it's been your teacher, the gong. Yeah.
Yes. And I thank you for saying that, because I do feel the gong is our most loving teacher, and the one that I've put the harshest, on. But yes, the gong has been my teacher, and someone said, "Are you in love with the gong?" I said, "I don't know. When I was introduced to it, this is what's happened. It's just part of what I do. I can't tell you anything more." People sometimes want these big explanations. How, why? I can't give it. It just is. And you're smiling, so I think you can appreciate that.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. And almost
Yeah.
at the same time, words aren't necessary. It's beyond words. It's just, you're right. It just is. It just is.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I I can't explain it. And quite honestly, I don't want to. And that throws people. It just stands on its own. It's funny, we keep looking for the answers of life, and they're so simple in some ways. Maybe the gong is the answer. It just is.
And that's right. It just takes people experiencing it to understand that, I think.
Yeah, it's I have to tell you, as I'm sitting here thinking, I wish everyone could come to Bhutan and experience this, because, and we do. I mean, these gongsters were introducing people all over the world to the gong, but in this setting, against the mountains, and in some of these homes with the wood, dirt floors, and betel nut teeth women, red teeth, and kids, and it's just this whole other realm that in this brigadoon. And I know all over the world people are experiencing, first time people hearing the gong. But I'll carry all the gongsters with me here in Bhutan, and we all are connected. So you're all with me. So.
Well, we're all inspired and living vicariously through your adventures. So what's your plan for your last few weeks there before you head back?
Well, we will be on the road, as I said, as of tomorrow. And I know Gembo has, I know there's one very sacred place by the river we'll be playing, and some monasteries, and in a school, a government school, which I'm really thrilled about, because that gets very difficult. And I don't know how we did it, so that's great. And then when I come back, it'll be for 9 days or so. I'm going to hike up to Tiger's Nest, which I didn't do last time, the famous Tiger's Nest. And we're taking some of the gongs, and I'm going to do a photo shoot, which I think is going to be so iconic. And I'm training for Tiger's Nest, and then I'll be having meetings just to continue the discussions that I was just telling you about. And then I'm going to Thailand and house there, because Vietnam's not open, and visas are difficult when they do open. So I'll wait in Vietnam, and in the meantime, hopefully when I leave here, we'll have enough information that I can then begin to reach out to the Gong community and say, can you help me develop a curriculum, please? I need your support. So, I'm looking forward to, it can be an exciting time of figuring out how to develop a program. All of this is new to me. How do we educate? How do we pull this together? So that's one of my tasks, is to get these business components together.
Well, yes, that many of us in the community will be looking forward to seeing if there's ways that we can help in any way. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from people in the podcast audience as well. So when your call for more help goes out, we'll be ready. Yeah.
Well, I want you, first of all, to thank you for taking the time to interview and spend with me. And a big thank you to the Gong community who support I do feel, and that it means a lot to me. So I really thank you very, very much for finishing my day that has already been beautiful, but to giving me, Bhutan gives me perfect gifts. And I'd like to thank you for giving me this perfect offering this evening.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, what an amazing day you've had. And thank you so much for sharing such an awe-inspiring journey that you're on, continuous. And I can't wait to see what happens next for you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sound Heal Podcast, sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com. check things out on Facebook at Sounds Heal Studio, and you can listen to all previous podcasts as well as music meditations on the YouTube channel at Sounds Heal Studio. Be well and stay tuned.